Homosexuals that were outed before you were ready to come out. What happened? How did you deal with the aftermath? Holy crap. I feel so bad for everyone in this thread. The entire concept of having to come out is balls. You should be able to be who you are and not have to fear anything because of that. I'm sorry. Really appreciate that. In general, it's a much better environment than it ever has been. But even after that first major experience of coming out, and even if it goes well, it's an unnerving prospect to meet someone new or travel somewhere with strong conservative values, because you never know. Here's a placeholder comment for all the LGBT people who dealt with this by committing suicide, and therefore can't answer for themselves, and those whose lives were taken by others. I went to a therapist for my anxiety, depression, possible OCD. I mentioned that my symptoms had gotten worse after a breakup, but didn't tell him who I was dating or that I was bi or anything. So he turned right around and told my parents that I was sad after a breakup, and that I'd get over it eventually. Cut to my parents having no idea that I'd dated anyone, and my mother connecting the dots that I had dated a girl. I only hung out with her for a few months, so it was pretty suspicious already. My parents weren't upset about me being queer. They were upset that they had to hear it from a therapist. A therapist that I don't want to tell them in the first place. Oh, and later, after that therapist had been fired on molestation charges, the new therapist met with me just to chat. Well, when I mentioned that I'd considered cutting, she called my mom right up and was very worried that I had been self-harming even though I hadn't actually cut yet. My mom strangled me a little bit, made sure I would never be so stupid or I would never tell anyone ever again at least, and then I never got help for it. TL. DR. Frick, school therapist one inadvertently outed me while saying my mental illness isn't real, and the other led to my mom putting her hands around my throat. Frick. Therapists. About 4 years ago, I hooked up with another girl. I was terrified. The first person I told was my aunt, my mom's brother's wife, who is a therapist and had alluded to trying to be a lesbian in college. I was feeling lost and scared and didn't feel I could turn to closer people in my life yet. Basically, I told her that I was questioning my sexuality. I asked her what I should do. Should I come out to my mom? Should I tell people? She told me to just keep adventuring and doing what feels right and things will fall into place in the future. It was actually a really comforting conversation. I slowly came out as gay over the next year to my immediate family and closest friends. When I started telling other aunts, uncles, cousins in a more casual way, surprise, I was the last to find out that Amy had immediately told everyone that I was a lesbian, even though all she knew was that I was questioning. Amy even told my mom, your daughter is a lesbian and you really need to talk to her about that. The very next day after I first talked to her, I freaked out and started getting panic attacks. I questioned every interaction I had had with family members in that last year. It was pretty terrible. I still have anxiety about it. I can't even imagine how it might be for someone in a situation where they would potentially be made unsafe or experience violence after being outed. My family is generally liberal and no one cared that I'm gay, but the fact that they knew it before I even knew it makes me feel pretty powerless. What makes it even worse is that she's a therapist, and yet she's still fricked up. 17-year-old gay male here. I was outed to my mother by my ex-girlfriend a year ago when I was 16. Following our breakup, in which I revealed I was gay and just wanted to experiment with a girl to test my sexuality. It happened the day after I made out with her and she stuck her hand in my pants, but I couldn't get a boner. I felt really weird about it and knew that girls weren't for me, so I decided to end it. Following the fight that night, she phoned my mother. They were really close cause I was with her for 8 months, and told her the reason I ended the relationship. My parents are strong Christian parents and my mother called me into her room and explained what happened. She said that she didn't approve of it and I was just going through a phase and agreed to keep it from my father since he'd basically kick me out if he knew. The next few days were rough emotionally for me as she was angry and I was scared of what would happen to me. A year has passed since and my mother has grown to be more open-minded towards it and even knows I have boyfriend now and lets me go out with him. I'm grateful that she loves me so much that she puts my happiness before hers since she really wants grandchildren. My dad still doesn't know, however, so I hope when the time comes he responds the same way as my mother. Being outed by my angry ex to my mom was a blessing. I'm really glad things are looking up. I just wanted to say though that being gay doesn't mean you can't have children if you want them. I think I struggled with my own sexuality for a while because I didn't quite connect that I could still have kids someday, and I really wanted to have a traditional family life at some point. Mum sort of put 2 and 2 together and pressured an answer out of my sister, who I was already out to. My sister warned me things were going to be weird around the house. They were for a little while, but now it just isn't brought up or mentioned anymore. My freshman roommate in college was apparently so fascinated by the fact that I was gay that he told everyone he knew in the dorm. It wasn't really a big deal since I wasn't keeping it a secret, but it was weird to have someone I'd never met before saying something like, "Hey, you're that guy's gay roommate." 7th grade, my mom read my diary and she told everyone in my family. My aunts wanted to send me to conversion camp. It took years of therapy between my mother and I in order to repair our relationship. I still don't think she understands what she did to me when she outed me, but we're better now and I forgive her. My aunts can both die in a fire. First time I've ever commented. From a straight male. A lot of these stories broke my heart. The hatred, isolation, and abuse some of you have been through is incredibly painful for me to even read about. I can't imagine what this was like. People are crappy. Acceptance shouldn't be the exception. Thank you. Middle school sucked balls. Everyone bullied me for being lesbian before I even realized I was queer myself. I went to Catholic high school instead of my local public school. It was great. I was very closeted my teenage years but had a small group of friends that knew. Anyway, I moved out of state and this girl I went to high school with messaged me out of nowhere and told me about her insane battle with bulimia, and it cut me deep because I felt like she just needed someone to talk to and confide in, as I did too. So I decided frick it and sent her back a long heartfelt message about the fact that I was gay, and she responded affectionately. I was so relieved. Another person now knows. Well, the next day I learned that she was on shrooms that night before and was kind of losing her crap or opening up to me irrationally. We were never even close friends really, but she was a sweetheart. That afternoon she called me screaming that I had sex with her boyfriend and she had known about it for a while and that him and so many other guys are gay, and I just proved it to her. My heart sank immediately. I started receiving calls from my friends saying they were so sorry that she told everyone and they loved me. Then her boyfriend, whom is a very handsome man and old friend, calls me and says, "Hey sexy, I heard we made sweet love together." I just lost it and started laughing and crying hysterically. No one gave a crap that I was gay, obviously, but the reassurance that I got that day and how it all happened was amazing. She made it so much easier. Bless her heart. So I left my laptop in home for vacation on grandma's house. Knowing that my sisters can't handle computer well except for playing video, I think I was safe. Then after coming home I noticed in my recent playlist was all of my pee collection. I was dumbfounded and hoping it was my mistake didn't remove them before, and my sister didn't open that. After several days my sister asked me about the pee and I just tell her it's my friend playing prank with me, then she was okay with that. Not sure if she believes it or not, but one thing for sure, my mom should also know about this. Although there's no change happened after that. I doubt she believed that BS, but she sounded pretty impressed considering she watched everything, lol. Sorry if this is a little confusing. I'm taking this complicated story and summarizing it the best I can while leaving in the important details. For the record, I'm a girl. My cousin outed my ex-girlfriend and I to my mother because she felt uncomfortable seeing how close my ex and I were when we spent time together and interacted. Tony, my cousin, even asked me about my sexuality and I didn't give her an answer because I simply didn't have to. At the time I didn't even know what I identified as. I went with the flow of things with my girlfriend and didn't feel like I needed a label over my head. With this being said, Mom wanted to hear it from my mouth. I assume my mother started putting 2 and 2 together and started observing our behavior around each other, which led her to believe there was something more than a friendship between my ex and I. For months, about 3, I denied the truth. Then eventually one night, after being questioned for what seemed an eternity, I broke down and confessed. I came out as pansexual to my mother, and a couple weeks later I told my dad through a letter. Surprisingly, my strict Christian parents took it a lot better than expected. They still allowed my ex to come over and spend time with me and even supported me throughout our breakup. Though they don't understand everything about pansexuality, they want me to have a healthy and happy relationship with whoever I choose to be with. Mistake number 1. I told my mom that I had wanted to see a therapist to talk to someone about my problems. My mother is a very prying woman. I went to see the therapist once and then my parents decided to throw my computer out of their concern for my mental health. They found that I was engaging in sexual relations with a boy whom I had recently befriended. First actual boyfriend. One-sided obsessive relationship. When I got home from school one day, my mom said she would talk to me after my father got home from work after forcefully removing my laptop from my room. After my dad got home, they started grilling me with questions about what I was doing, who I was doing things with, got very confrontational over my issues with self-harm. Haven't cut for years and just approached the situation without any consideration for my feelings. My mom was crying and my dad couldn't look me in the eye because of his Christian values. Then it turned into the blame game of why do you think you can't talk with us? At this point I'm breaking down crying, not wanting to deal with the situation, and then they asked if I was considering harming myself. To be perfectly honest, I had been. As soon as I got home and knew something was up, I knew that they knew my secret and I wanted to die. These were the people who had yelled and cried at me for not believing in God. What would they do with a gay? They put me in a juvenile stress center to cope with my depression. This place was heck. They guilted you into living by making you feel bad and selfish for wanting to kill yourself. It was also a religious institution, so they talked about my homosexuality with a certain reverence. My parents and I are on much better terms 5 years later and after I've moved out, but I am still upset that they took my chance away to tell them I was gay. My parents still say insensitive things from time to time and don't realize some of the things they say or do are still hurtful. It gets better with time, all I can really say. When I was about 12 or 13, I watched a lot of gay pee on an old computer with Internet Explorer. For some reason, I never thought to clear the browser history. Well, my mom saw it, of course, and it was the same day that my best friend, of the same gender, spent the night. My mom was being very passive aggressive towards me. I guess more so than most people would expect because my mom was very abusive, and I was terrified for the entire night. Finally, she pulled me aside and said, "I just wanted to let you know that I saw what you've been looking up. That's very disgusting, and you're sick. I'm gonna put you in a mental hospital because that is the grossest thing I've ever seen." Years later she acts like she's always been my biggest ally. I was a teenager and I had started dating a good friend of mine. It had been going on for about 2 months. And then I had the idea to buy her a gift for Christmas, something I just never did for anyone at the time. So as I was wrapping that gift, my mom comes in my room, looks at me for a while before asking, "Is Emily more than a friend?" I blushed, then said yes. Then she said, "Okay, you tell your father. I'm not breaking the news for you." Took me 4 months to tell my father and my mom kept pushing me to tell him because she was uncomfortable to know something he didn't. I was super stressed out because I had never heard him talk about that subject, so I had absolutely no idea of what could be his reaction. Once I told him, he stayed silent for a while then chuckled a little. As dads, we never see anything, and that was his. I had been so worried for absolutely nothing. My mom outed me to my aunt after she promised me she wouldn't tell anyone, because I wanted to break the news to people myself on my own time. My aunt was dropping me off at work and mentioned my mom had told her. I was shocked and didn't say anything at the time, since it wasn't my aunt's fault. When I came home from work that day, and I yelled at my mom. In retrospect, I definitely could have handled it more reasonably. Honestly, I didn't actually feel angry. I felt betrayed and empty. My main goal was to cause a scene and make her feel bad for what she'd done so she wouldn't do it again. It worked. She apologized and I forgave her, and that was it. I don't think she's told anyone since then. Not gay, but autistic. My teacher in year 3 was told in a parent-teacher conference, and I pleaded her not to tell anyone. Guess what she announced the entire class the next day? What a total B. When I was 17, my parents found P and a gay Christian website on the computer. Yes. For several years I had diligently cleared the search history. I realized I was getting lax about it and the thought occurred to me I might be self-sabotaging. My father loaded a program for parental controls on the computer and sat me down and told me he and my mother had found a therapist they wanted me to see, and so began my stint in reparative therapy gay rehab. At the time I knew reparative therapy was balls, but I realized I had the emotional bandwidth to either A, deal with building an honest relationship with my parents and try and convince them reparative therapy was a con, or B, see a therapist once a week to placate them and focus on getting into a college that would take me I turned 30 last month and haven't lived in Alabama since I left for college at 18. When I was at a mental hospital, one of the nurses wanted to know why I was so depressed, suicidal, and that she wouldn't tell anyone if I told her. After 20 minutes in complete silence, I told her I was trans. She then told my psychiatrist, whom I was not ready to tell. That was a really silly thing for that nurse to promise you. Never, ever, ever, ever promise to keep secrets for your patients. Always explain the boundaries of your professional ethics before they disclose things. Gah. I'm actually ace, but I was inadvertently outed when I checked into Psych inpatient. My girlfriend told my mom we had broken up. Honestly, everything was so confusing and emotional I didn't realize that was what she was crying over. Not realizing I hadn't told her we were dating just yet. I dunno. I just don't tell people life changes fast. Thing is, my parents are chill and were used to me showing no interest I am anyone, so it went surprisingly okay. I feel like I got lucky. Literally nothing changed, but the situation meant they were far more worried over my mental health than dating preference. My grandma kept telling mom she didn't like my GF hanging out with me so much because she would turn me gay. Mom actually asked permission to out me if grandma did it again. Grandma was literally dying at the time, so mom wanting to defend me to her was a sign I'm much more than simply accepted. I told literally one person. He proceeded to tell everyone. Actually worked out pretty well cause I'm shy af and hate having to tell people. No one really cared. Pretty uneventful tbh. My mom just kind of guessed. One day she walked into my room and said, "Are you gay?" Shocked. I thought, well crap. Now's as good a time as ever, and said yes, and she broke down crying. I feel like a disappointment. You might feel like you are, but you aren't. I wasn't outed. However, I guess you could say that I outed my best friend. I should preface this by saying me and Derek, not real name, have been friends for pretty much our whole lives, so we knew more about each other than almost everyone. I always knew Derek wasn't really attracted to girls. Nothing about him showed it. I just kind of knew, I guess. Anyway, freshman year he was over having dinner with me and my family because he basically lived at my house. Well, afterwards we were doing the dishes and I told him, "Derek, I want you to know that you're my best friend no matter what." He told me something like, "Dude, for sure." Later we were in my room watching music videos on YouTube and he asked me, "Why did you tell me that before?" So I, without even thinking about it, said, "Because I know how you are." We got into a pretty decent sized argument in which at the conclusion he told me he has been trying to figure out how to tell me for about a year now but was too scared because he thought he was going to lose me as a friend. Looking back on it now, I probably could have gone about it quite a bit differently. However, he is still my best friend and I'm going to be the best man in his wedding in May. My mom cried tears of joy when he told her that he's getting married. Mom more or less outed me to all of her work friends and a lot of our family. Her friends she told outright. My family, she just kept calling my girlfriend her girlfriend in front of them. They got it. And one family friend aunt she told after she came out as gay. I never out myself. I don't like the process and I don't feel it's necessary, so it was weird. No one really asks. My family was super quiet about it. I wouldn't mind if they asked questions, but they don't. It sounds great and all, they just accept it, I guess, but the paranoid part of me is worried that they don't really approve. I'm glad it turned out relatively okay for you, but that loss of control really sucks. It's your information to give out, and you should be able to decide who and when to tell. Sorry it had to happen that way. When I was about 11 years old, I told a friend I was gay and not even 15 minutes later everyone in my class knew about it. Instead of saying it wasn't true and ending it there, I decided it was a good idea to come out to everyone. Really bad idea. Stopped saying it after like 2 weeks, but the damage was done. Destroyed my relationship with my boyfriend at the time that I really cared for. We were dating since we were 9 and got bullied for the next 5-6 years. Got beaten up a few times and they even messed up my bike. Thankfully I didn't get that badly hurt. It wasn't all negative though. Since everyone knew I was gay, a lot of the curious be gay guys tried things with me. Interesting that the guy who outed me was one of them. I had already had a difficult time with my dad being an alcoholic and hurting my mother, and these two things together really shaped who I am today and made me a lot stronger. I'd say it worked out alright. When I was in 9th grade I outed myself to my mom after getting my wisdom teeth taken out. I was in no way ready to tell them and I was petrified after I had realized what I had done. It's all worse in that I needed my mom to take care of me for a day or two while my teeth were recovering. I just sort of stayed in my bed freaking out and hoping I wouldn't have to talk to them. It all turned out for the best though, as they were very supportive, but it was definitely unexpected. I have a lot of gay friends and I always have throughout my life. It's not because I'm gay, I'm a straight male. I just get on well with people and them being gay has never been any concern to me. But of course hanging around with a lot of people who are openly gay has made people question my sexuality. Even in high school I was friends with 2 guys. They were outed somehow and so people started calling me gay too cause I hanged out with them. People are weird. My own mother even asked me if I was gay once because she heard one of my best friends had come out to his mother recently. She had shared it with my mother etc. She then asked me if he'd ever touched me inappropriately, which just shows the mindset that some people have around homosexuality. They just don't get that they are the same as anyone else, and just because they like the same genders doesn't mean they're now rapists etc. My mother I think is mostly ignorant and her questions come from that place. My father uses gay terms as insults etc. Surprisingly I turned out quite well adjusted and accepting considering my upbringing. Seeing all of these worst case scenario responses makes me so sad. I was outed to my sports team by some of my closer friends that on accident. I thought they'd respond negatively but they truly just didn't give a crap, and that was exactly how I wanted. I was afraid if they knew they'd treat me different, but that wasn't the case. I came out as not straight to a guy who is in the closet because his family would disown him if they found out he was gay. He then, whilst conversing with someone I barely knew, called me a wonderful lesbian. I never said even lesbian, what the heck. This caused a few rumors at my school but I just played it off as a joke and no one really cared too much. But still caused me stress and I thought this guy of all people would understand. Now I pick very carefully the people I want to tell. I told 2 of my friends and in sophomore year of high school and it just spread around to everyone because they thought that since I told them, then I must have been fully out. I didn't feel any difference in the way people treated me because everyone was pretty liberal and I was a quiet person who stayed under the radar anyway. But when I actually got a girlfriend people began to freak out and talk crap. My friends even started to say stuff like gross and you when we were together in front of them and tried to pass it off as their reaction to the weirdness of 2 people within the friend group becoming a couple. I still feel super bitter about it to this day. If we were a heterosexual couple I'd imagine they'd be teasing us about how cute we were instead. Wow, I didn't expect this to pick up as much as it did. Thank you all for sharing your stories and your struggles. A lot of these stories make me angry or heartbroken and I want to thank you for opening up to strangers on the internet and telling your stories. I just want to say, stay strong. You have worth and you matter. I'm not gay, but I constantly come out because frick it, there's probably someone within earshot who is scared to death every day of their life, and hearing someone be casual about it might help them live a slightly less terrifying life. For all I know I might have saved someone's life by being openly gay and shutting down homophobes. Also I am physically imposing, which also helps shut down homophobes. I lived in a flat with 4 other guys. I'm gay and never really thought I had to tell anyone I lived with. I mean, I'm not sleeping with them. I had a few friends over and my flatmate walked into the kitchen. We sat around playing cards and the flatmate asked if I was seeing any girls. Friend said, "Are you mocking him?" Flatmate was very confused and asked what he meant. Friend, you know he's gay, right? Flatmate, FCKING plot twist. Not a single care was given. He would occasionally say something homophobic like "ugh gay" and I would reply with "ugh, breeder." That is one of the best occasions. Man, I read all these comments and just holy heck. I could care less if someone is gay. Being gay is not a disease or a choice. It's just who you are. I wouldn't want someone to tell me how I'm supposed to act or live my life, so I won't do that either. You do you is all I gotta say. I'd be friends with any of you people on here. I had a friend in college out me before I was ready. She did it because she wanted a guy who liked me to like her, and it worked out to my benefit. I had a really good guy friend from high school, and he had serious feelings for me that were not reciprocated. He and my friend Jane became friends. She developed feelings, he didn't, and she was upset. By this point I had started a relationship with a girl, who I am now married to, yay, that she didn't approve of but used to her advantage. She called my high school friend and outed me. Eventually word got back to my parents, and I was just glad someone told my dad so I didn't have to lol. Worked out well for me. Bonus. The guy thought Jane was a terrible person after that, so she lost a friend and a crush. So sad. I had been dating my partner for about 8 months, and I was still living with my parents. Because both my partner and I were assigned female at birth, but neither of us identify that way, we were able to get away with being gal pals and having sleepovers and being best friends. At least, we were until my father, who thought it was weird that we shared a bed when she slept over, which it isn't. Men friends, especially female, share beds, but I digress. Asked my mom to ask me if there was anything going on between us. I wasn't ready to come out to my parents at that point because they're conservative Christians and I didn't really know how they'd react, and I avoided answering my mom's questions with an actual answer until she asked me a straight out question. I immediately began sobbing that I still wanted to be able to go to school, and I didn't want to be kicked out. Half of it was genuine fear, and the other half was the knowledge that she'd probably react with more anger if I didn't visibly show her how scared I was. They're still not happy about my relationship or my gender identity, but my partner and I are now married, my queer and trans status is public, and we recently spent Christmas with my parents with no passive-aggressive comments. So, it's not perfect, but it's improving. However, I still feel that I should not have been forced to tell my parents anything before I felt completely safe. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.